up here too. I think we're gonna see.
It's so weird how bright your screen is, that it's bright enough to actually not, like we need to close everything else.
All right, and welcome. I'm glad everybody is joining us up here too. I think we're gonna. Okay, glad everybody could join us today on this Thursday afternoon. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and we're going to talk today about the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, this is also going to feel like a little bit of a review as well, in that it's not just the fall of the Soviet Union. I'm going to kind of talk about the Soviet Union in general. So it's going to feel a little bit like a review of a lot of the things we've talked about, mixed with at the same time summing it up, right? But we're going to kind of talk about the Cold War almost from the vantage point of what was it like for Russia, right? Their vantage point of what was going on. So it's going to be little incidents that have already been covered in previous lessons, but more of a focus on how are they dealing with it from their vantage point. Let me go ahead and put the code in today's lesson, and the code is TOSUL. That's going to be the code in Nearpod. I will also be sliding over every now and then to check GoGuardian to make sure people are on task and paying attention. So yeah, let's get going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is in the beginning. Now, if you remember, I did an entire lesson on this, the Russian Revolution, how it fell to communism. You can go back and check that one out if you want to. But basically, in a nutshell, due to the events of Tsar Nicholas, remember that story with Rasputin and all that stuff, where he's just kind of ignoring the country in the middle of World War I. They're doing horribly throughout the course of World War I. So they would set up a provincial government, but that government is very ineffective. They particularly are focused on squashing this new up-and-coming political party. We have political parties, Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, all these different parties, right? They had this up-and-coming party, the Communist Party, led by the Soviets. And the leader of the Soviets was the Bolsheviks, and the leader of the Bolsheviks was Vladimir Lenin. And so Vladimir Lenin would use this to seize power and turn Russia into a communist country. Okay, so why do the people want a new type of government? By the way, thank you, Quinn, thank you, Nirali, and thank you, Busher, for showing up. Glad you could join us. Why would the people want a new type of government? What do you think?
Is this like the time where Anastasia is around?
Yes,
Like
yes, yeah. Tsar Nicholas is Nicholas Romanov. It was her dad. The whole royal family is. The people are not happy with the royal family, and they're all going to get burned to the ground. Yeah, in the real story of Anastasia, she dies. The whole family dies.
How about you know?
Yeah, the whole family dies. Yeah.
It's like
so. Why would the people want a new type of government?
I'm guessing they're not exactly living well by then.
No, right? And you got to realize the sheer volume of people that got sent off to their death in World War I. I mean, just millions and millions getting marched off to their death. Oh, welcome aboard, Miss Kaylin. Glad you could join us today.
What year is this? Around what year?
This is going to be the early. I think it's 1917, 1918, somewhere in there. Early 1900s. Yeah, I'm currently scrolling over to see if there's anybody that's off task. Why would they want a new type of government? Oh, she's on task.
Hey, Noel.
Hey, welcome, Noel. Glad you could join us.
Zaporteza. Well, the one that's he probably didn't know why.
Yeah, they didn't like their rulers, right? That's a good point. The people that were in charge, they were bungling World War I. Yeah, they were looking for a new type of government, one that was more worked better economically for the people, right? Okay, so they're going to change out the government. They're going to put Vladimir Lenin in charge. He's going to be the leader. And then later on throughout the Second World War, Vladimir Lenin's already gone.
Joseph Stalin.
And Joseph Stalin would take over, right? Now, he is a particularly brutal guy. He's going to send 17 million people off to their death during World War II. Most of them without proper equipment, training, so on and so forth. It's going to be 15% of the entire country's population. In fact, I think it's close to 4 or 5 million of them died just at Stalingrad. So
At the what?
Stalingrad, basically, it was like the capital city of Russia, and they decided.
Narcissistic.
Yeah, named after Stalin, right? So they decided both sides were going to go all in on this battle, the Germans and the Russians, and it was very close proximity fighting, because they were all kind of hiding behind buildings. Sometimes it was literally hand-to-hand fighting, and both sides decided they weren't going to give up. They refused to give up, and so it was the highest casualty rate of any battle in human history. But the Russians win. So here's the question, and maybe this hits a little close to home, but what would it be like if we lost 15% of our population today?
How many
What would
people
that be
in
like?
America right now? 400?
About 320 million people.
320 million.
Yeah, you're talking 45 million people. 45 million people died. What would America be like with 45 million dead?
Well, the economy will crash.
Oh, it would be a horrendous crash.
Well, yeah, less 15% of people buying crap,
Right.
And then it's kind of like Endgame.
Yeah.
Like the whole town will be in mourning, and when you lost someone that you love, everything else still going normal, so it kind of forces you to be normal like everyone else. But when everyone is mourning, it's very hard to move on from that. So
Right.
You're not gonna want to go eat out or go on vacation and that's
right. And it's funny because the first thing I would have normally, like, let's say I was teaching this in school still, right? We still had class. The thing I would kind of compare it to was the bubonic plague. During the bubonic plague, it wipes out 60% of Europe and about 30% of the whole world's population. 25%, somewhere in there, of the entire planet's population get wiped out during the bubonic plague. And I'd always say, well, what if we had another pandemic that killed millions of people? Hopefully it's not going to get anywhere near to that level. But, it does kind of beg the question of, like, what could it be like, that type of thing. Let's see what the answer is. The economy will drop. Devastated economy. Yeah, manpower, especially like for things like the military. That's a great point. Oh, Mr. Raby has joined us. Mr. Raby, I'm still waiting on that theme song. I'm going to mention that every time you join us today. Oh, yeah, the gulags. Yeah, so Noel mentioned, going back to the part of why they hated the people, Russians have these kind of like military prisons they call gulags. And if you're a political adversary of the government, particularly when they're Soviets, they throw you in these military prisons.
Is it like concentration camp?
Oh, it's pretty rough. Yeah, it's very inhumane. All right. Yeah. Okay, so after the events of World War II, the Soviet Union emerged as a world power and the chief rival for the U.S. At the heart of this conflict was the opposing governments of communism versus a capitalistic democracy. Okay. Now, following the events of World War II, Germany would be split in half. The Soviet Union would build the Berlin Wall to separate the two in half. And of course, we've talked about this in other lessons too.
Yes, sir.
This would serve as the de facto line between the communists and the free world.
So when they do that, do the people in Germany can choose which side they are, or just
No. It's like they literally come out one day and said,
yeah, by the way,
hey, yeah, everybody that's over on this side, you're Soviet now. You're not allowed to leave. We got armed troops out here. We're going to build this wall. No one's allowed over.
Suck.
Yeah.
What you haven't asked the question.
Oh yeah. So, why do you think the world was so concerned with what happened in Germany?
I don't think it seems like every time a country in the world goes communist, everyone is very concerned.
Right. Well, especially too the aspect of Germany, right? I mean, this is the country that created World War One and World War Two, and I want you to understand too. This one is going to kind of serve as a testing ground, right? Like you have a country, both of them start from the same place, right? From the exact same spot. So you're going to be able to see. Yeah, she's just not giving it up. You're going to be able to see firsthand which one works out better, right? Communism or or democracy, right? Capitalistic democracy.
Do, do the world do something when North Korea happened? When North Korea happened, do they do anything?
Do what now?
You know, in this one, is East Germany is going to be
Right.
communist. Do they do anything when it's North Korea?
Oh, we try to invade North Korea. It doesn't work out very well. Yeah, boy, they're just not giving it up. Now, as the Western world created NATO, the Soviet Union would create the communist version of NATO called the Warsaw Pact. Right, all the Allied nations, you can see them right here, the list of them: France, West Germany, Norway, Iceland, United Kingdom, Portugal, Turkey, even us. Right, we all create NATO. Well, they come together and create the Warsaw Pact, and that is kind of like the opposite of NATO. The communist version of NATO. And of course, both of them, an attack against one is an attack against all. Okay, so why do you think the Soviets would want to build up their own alliance?
Well, they need their homies.
Right.
You know, the what do you call it? The more backing you get, the safer you are.
Right. Well, the safety in numbers, that kind of protection.
So I'm keep coming back to the same question. The people in East Germany, I know they have no choice. They're like, all right, now you're Soviet Union. Do they have any representative in the government or in the military, or is it just okay? All of you will be civilians now. We're taking care of everything.
Yeah, basically, right? All civil liberties are taken away. You're basically property of the government.
So I'm guessing they take over their business and everything as well.
Right.
Sad.
Yeah, they're hell bent.
Is she watching or he? Is she watching? What is she trying to watch anyway?
I don't know. Hold on.
Just let it be.
Yeah. Close this thing. Yeah, they wanted to build their own strong alliance, oppose NATO, good stuff. Oh, and welcome aboard, Mr. Velasquez. Okay, so seeing the destructive power of the atomic bomb, the Soviet Union would use spies to get the technology to build their own bombs. Both sides had a race to build the biggest, longest range, and most powerful bombs. This would lead to a space race and atomic bomb testing. And here you can see the atomic bombs. You got Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You can see the two. And it's almost the size of Mount Everest, the one that we dropped at Nagasaki. Okay. Now look up here, and I want you to see, this is our most powerful one. This is the Castle Bravo bomb that was dropped in '51. Look at Russia's bomb. This is the Tsar bomb. That's the most powerful bomb ever dropped. It got up to over 200,000 feet up in the air, about 220,000 feet up in the air.
Where did they bomb this?
I think this was up at near the Arctic Circle. The only reason we even knew about it, we found out years later because they tell us. The only reason we even knew about it is because it registered on the Richter scale. Yeah, it's a powerful bomb. Powerful. So, what percentage do you fear that we'll ever have a nuclear war? On a scale of, you can only do 100%, 75%, 50, 25, and no fear. What is your percent fear that we'll ever have a nuclear war?
Well, the scary thing is the several people that have nuclear is the one that I don't trust.
Yeah,
But
North
I do
Korea,
have-
Soviet Union.
Yeah, but I don't know. I have this. It cannot, the leader have other people that support them and advise them. So
Right.
hopefully the people that advise them, will give them good advice to not do.
Right.
Because it's not it's not a bomb that happened one time and then it's destroyed for that time. This is something that's continuously we're going to fight with.
Right.
Is
right.
it already normal in Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
I'm sorry.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, are they
Yeah,
normal
yeah,
now?
yeah. They're back to normal. In fact, that was one of the places I really wanted to go was to Hiroshima. But let's see. We got a 100%. We got a 75%. It looks like the largest answer is no. Oh no, around 50%.
Yeah,
It's the largest
That,
answer.
that's where I would be.
Yeah, about 50%. Okay. Okay, so the Soviets would want to counter U.S. missiles that were in position to be able to attack them. We started putting missiles all over the Soviet Union. So if they acted like a bad actor, we could, push the button, launch those missiles. And they wanted to be able to do that right back to us. So they started trying to send missiles to Cuba. And we created a naval blockade. And we kind of went over that in detail in the JFK administration, so you can see that in greater detail. But they basically, we held our line and they decided to back off and not send the missiles. Now, and of course, we kind of went over all this too, but the Soviet Union would begin proxy wars. So would we, by the way. And proxy wars are when you attack your enemy by simply funding money, resources, and supplies to their enemy. Right? So we see this in Korea, Vietnam, and Cuba. Right? The Soviet Union doesn't attack us. What they do is they support the enemies of those that are attacking us. Right? They send them money, supplies, weapons, so on and so forth. Now, we would do that as well, right? We talked about Charlie Wilson's war in Afghanistan. We talked about Nicaragua, how we helped out the Contras. So we start doing that too. And those are called proxy wars, right? When you don't fight somebody directly, you support the enemies of those that they're fighting.
The enemy of my enemy.
That's right. That's right. So what are your thoughts on proxy wars? Are they a good idea, a bad idea? Do you think they're cowardly? How do you see it?
I see it as cowardly and a good idea.
Yeah, it is a little. It is a little cowardly and a little good
love
idea.
and war.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, and of course, the big thing too is we're not going to fight Russia because they have nukes, and they won't fight us because we have nukes. But they got no money shoveling money into Vietnam or shoveling money into Korea or Cuba or wherever. And we're the same way. I mean, we had no problem creating the Taliban and Al Qaeda and all that stuff. So.
I feel like the other countries are peons.
Yeah. Well, and that's why if you go back to that picture, it showed the chessboard. You're kind of playing chess with other countries.
I don't
So.
see that.
We'll go back to the slide after they put in their answers.
Yep.
Yep, it's a good idea. Good strategy.
It's a smart strategy, definitely.
Right. Clinton
And-
is cowardly.
Hey, you can be both.
Yeah. Right. And if I not, I think I'm correct. She's Vietnamese, and I can imagine the Vietnamese did not like being used as pawns in a proxy wars. Yeah, good idea and cowardly. Yeah, so Mr. Masley pointed out that the Tsar bomb was so powerful it caused third-degree burns from 45 to 60 miles away.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. And again, we didn't know it. Like, we didn't have camera footage of it. I mean, they did, but we didn't. The reason we knew about it is because it was registering on the Richter scale. So. Okay, so enter this guy right here. This is Mikhail Gorbachev, and he's kind of made famous Yeah, that's almost as far away from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. Yeah. So Mikhail Gorbachev would assume power in '85, and he's going to kind of come in as this reformer, right? He wanted to. He would end up winning a Nobel Peace Prize for his role in reforming the Soviet Union and kind of ending the Cold War. He's going to introduce two policies. The first one is glasnost, which I'm assuming is a Russian word, and that is a Russian word for a openness and willing to allow Western ideas and goods into the USSR. He's also going to introduce perestroika. Perestroika, okay. This allowed limited market incentives to the Soviet Union. So, in a nutshell, limited amounts of capitalism, right? Some people could create businesses. Some people could carry out Western ideas. You start pulling back of how you filter the media, because, of course, they didn't allow media being allowed into the country. Okay? And it's during this time, which, by the way, I'm glad you're watching live, because there's no way they're going to let me keep this on the YouTube video. So everything I'm saying is about to get cut out, so just bear with me. But it's during this course of time that you're going to see a softening on both ends, right? On our end and on their end. We open up trade talks with them. We open up negotiations with them. And I think the best way to sum it up, to kind of give you that feeling of, for me, what it was like being a kid in the early 80s. It all is kind of summed up in this one scene. And this is the ending of Rocky IV. Now, in this movie, the kind of champion of the Soviets has just fought the champion of America in Moscow. And Rocky, the underdog, the undersized underdog, finally beats up this giant behemoth. Probably he's got 80 pounds of muscle on him. Monster, right? And during the course of the battle, he gets so beat up, but keeps fighting, that the Soviets end up cheering for Rocky. Of course, none of this is real, but this movie scene kind of sums it up after he has won the battle.
I came here tonight, and I didn't know what to expect.
Когда я вышел этим вечером на этот ринг,
I seen a lot of people hating me, and I didn't know what to feel about that, so I guess I didn't like you much, none either.
я думаю, что я не любил их тоже.
During this fight, I seen a lot of changing.
В течение всего этого боя я понял, что многое изменилось.
The way you felt about me, and the way I felt about you.
И я почувствовал, что вы тоже изменились.
In here, there were two guys killing each other. But I guess that's better than 20 million.
Я думаю, что это лучше, чем даже 20 миллионов долларов.
So what I was trying to say is that if I can change,
Я думаю, что каждый тоже изменился
and
сегодня.
you can change,
Вы можете измениться.
Is that supposed to be Gorbachev?
Yeah.
Oh my god, they find a really good actor.
Yeah. Now, it should be of note, this is not going to have the same impact on you
one thing to my kid who should be home
that it would have on somebody who grew up in the 80s. But man, this is huge.
Счастливо тебе, Рождества! Парень! Я люблю тебя!
Okay, so why might the Soviet people have been on board with Gorbachev trying to allow relations with the West? Why would the people have been on board with that? What do you think?
Because it's better in the West.
Well, I mean, imagine they enjoyed the freedoms, particularly the
Yeah.
freedom of media, freedom to own property.
So, okay, I don't know much about Russia, but I just finished watching a Korean drama about North Korea and South Korea, and it's a little bit similar. So
Right.
over there, it's like in North Korea, they have limited amount of electricity.
Right.
You can only eat meat like once a day or something like that. It's all ration.
Right.
So I'm guessing the people in Soviet seeing, in this international fight, seeing the other teams like, that one seems it seems like their life is just a little bit nicer. you know?
Right. Yeah, you know, and it's the same thing too. Like, it's why they it's very hard to pull back privileges. You know, if you tell your kids, hey, your bedtime's been extended to 9 o'clock from 8 o'clock, boy, it's so hard going back to, no, we're going back to 8 o'clock. You know, it's almost impossible to go backwards on freedom. So
Okay, so with me this is normal, but people in Indonesia, we don't have AC all the time. A lot of people in Indonesia, even in Jakarta, do not have AC growing up.
right.
So what we have AC in our bedroom, and we're only allowed to turn it on at 10 at night, and it needs to be off by 6 or 5. That's normal, you know. But now it's like I'm here, I have AC all the time. Now last time I went there, I was like, it's so hot. I'm
Yes.
so privileged.
Yeah, for me it was ice in my drinks.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that I get like 1 or 2 little tiny ice cubes in a drink, and I'm like, what is this?
We don't have ice maker like
Yeah.
normal Indonesian, not the rich one. I don't know, but normal Indonesian people, we
Right.
don't have ice machine in our refrigerator.
Right. Yeah, it's really hard to remove privileges. Well, and I think we kind of all see it too. You know, one of the things we kind of complain about the most is, where's date night going? You know, it's like if we never had date night, you know, it wouldn't bother us. But now not being able to go to the movies.
I know.
Man, I miss going
I
to the
miss
movies.
going to the gym.
Yeah,
Lord.
we have ANC A-list, and so we go to about, 4 or 5 movies a month. So,
A month. We go like twice a week.
yeah, sometimes, yeah. Okay, so now it's going to feel a little bit like the Chernobyl show. And you're going to feel like, man, this dude is really hyping on Chernobyl. And I won't lie,
I haven't watched it.
a big part of it was me watching that HBO miniseries. And it made a strong argument that one of the major reasons, if not the major reasons, to the collapse of the Soviet Union was this event. And it made such a profound effect on me. It's one area, too, that they have not really covered, that we have not covered yet. So it's going to feel like I'm spending a little bit more time talking about it, so bear with me. Again, I'm very glad you're paying attention live, because large chunks of this is not going to make it onto the YouTube, because I'm sure HBO is going to cut it out. But you're watching it real time, so enjoy it while it lasts. Okay, so in April of 1986, the number 4 nuclear reactor at Chernobyl suffered a nuclear meltdown. Now, rather than deal with the situation as a nuclear meltdown because of embarrassment, they dealt with it as just a fuel leak explosion.
They put
right?
water on it.
Yeah, so they're pouring water on it thinking, oh, it's just a fire, it's no big deal. It was a nuclear meltdown. And because they were so slow in reacting to it, it becomes a giant disaster. Now, they'd eventually be forced to deal with it, mostly due to the brave work of, and I'd have to look up the guy's name too, he's the main character in the Chernobyl show, who kind of fought his own government to try to say, look, no, this is a nuclear meltdown, we've got to deal with it. And, if you watch the miniseries, it's fantastic. But anyway, when it's all said and done, 4,000 people are going to lose their lives trying to stop this thing. And, by the way, they only report 150 lives lost. But it's going to cost about $68 billion just fixing the problem. Now, the additional damage it causes, I think that's like over $250 billion. But just the initial putting it out is about $68 billion. Okay, so I want you to watch this. This is footage of...
This is the first episode, I think.
yeah, this is the very opening scene, the very first footage. I'm going to make this bigger so you can see it. For weeks on end before they finally decide to make the point to do something about it and try and fix it. Okay, so one of the major events that happens, this guy right here. Now, this guy is kind of like a scientist, and he was brought in by the Communist Party. Now, keep in mind, the Communist Party run the country, right? If you win the primary, you've won the presidency, basically. They have a Republican Party and a Democratic Party type situation, but only the one party even has a shot at winning. It's the whole election is rigged. So the real competition is to win the primary. Then you're just going to be handed the election. So the Communist Party takes over, right? And they're not famous for accepting people that buck the party and go against the formalities of the party. So I want you to hear this. This is him trying to explain to Gorbachev that it's a serious problem.
Thank you all for your duty to this commission. We will begin with Deputy Chairman Sherbina's briefing, and then we will discuss next steps, if necessary.
Thank you, Comrade General Secretary. I'm pleased to report that the situation in Chernobyl is stable.
It's not, by the way.
Military and civilian patrols have secured the
Space.
region, and Colonel General Pikalo, who commands troops specializing in chemical hazards, has been dispatched to the plant. In terms of radiation, Plant Director Bricano reports no more than 3.6 Röntgen. I'm told it's the equivalent of a chest X-ray, so if you're overdue for a checkup...
And foreign press?
Totally unaware. KGB First Deputy Chairman Sharkov assures me that we have successfully protected our security interests.
Good. Very good. Well, it seems like it's well in hand, so... If there is nothing else, meeting adjourned.
No.
He's risking his life to do this, by the way.
Pardon me?
We can't adjourn.
This is Professor Legasov of the Kurchatov Institute. Professor, if you have any concerns, feel free to address them with me later.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Page 3, the section on casualties. A fireman was severely burned on his hand by a chunk of smooth black mineral on the ground outside the reactor building. Smooth black mineral. Graphite. There's graphite on the ground.
Well, there was a tank explosion. There's debris. Of what importance that could
There's
be...
only one place in the entire facility where you will find graphite. Inside the core. If there's graphite on the ground outside, it means it wasn't a control system tank that exploded. It was the reactor core. It's open.
Comrade Sherbina.
Comrade General Secretary, I can assure you that Professor Legasov is mistaken. Bricano reports that the reactor core is intact. And as for the radiation...
Yes, 3.6 Röntgen, which, by the way, is not the equivalent of one chest X-ray, but rather 400 chest X-rays. That number's been bothering me for a different reason, though. It's also the maximum reading on low-limit dosimeters. They gave us the number they had. I think the true number is much, much higher. If I'm right, this fireman was holding the equivalent of 4 million chest X-rays in his hand.
Professor Legasov, there's no place for alarmist hysteria.
It's not alarmist if it's a fact.
Well, I don't hear any facts at all. All I hear is a man I don't know, engaging in conjecture, in direct contradiction to what has been reported by party officials.
I apologize. I didn't mean,
Okay, so I want to show you this picture right here, and I'm going to enlarge it. And this is kind of the tagline of the show. And it says, what is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for the truth. The real danger is that if we hear enough lies, then we'll no longer recognize the truth at all. Man, what a powerful quote. And that's from the actual real life Legasov. You know, and it's basically, it's kind of the oldest trick in the book is, if I were to tell you, say, Bigfoot is real, none of y'all are going to believe me, and rightfully so. But if I tell you 400 lies a day, then even when you hear the truth, how do you distinguish it from all the lies? And that's kind of one of the problems that we have. You know, it was mind-boggling to me thinking, if you had told me when I was a kid that we would have a device that I could pull out of my pocket, pocket right here. If I had a device that you told me I could pull out of my pocket and it had the entire world suppository of knowledge on it, everything mankind has ever learned right here on this device, I'd go, man, what a new age of knowledge and understanding and rational thought and reason. What an incredible time to be alive. Surely everybody at this point in time, we're just going to have this giant explosion in knowledge, in learning, and understanding. But the problem we have is the exact opposite. I can pick up this thing and find more garbage news, more lies, more myths, more gibberish than I could ever have had access to. You know, they used to have a magazine called the National Enquirer. They still have it.
I see that.
And you could go to the grocery store and it'd be sitting there, and of course it's like
The aliens kidnapped Nicole
Yeah,
Kidman.
they were the ones that started that. Hillary Clinton was running a sex shop out of a pizza parlor or something like that. You know, just stuff that's like the average person should go, oh, that's stupid. Like, nobody should believe that stuff, right? But now there's so much lying going on. You know, there's entire channels dedicated to it that, you know, it's so hard to sift through the knowledge. You know, they've actually offered classes to the elderly to help them understand when they're sharing fake news on Facebook. You know, so it becomes such a difficult situation. By the way, thank you for joining us, Sydney. Glad you could join us. You know, but it's so hard to tell what's going on. What's the truth? You know, when it gets in a situation like this with Chernobyl, where it's like, you know, there's so many opinions that this is a clear problem, right? There's a nuclear meltdown. And then you got all these people coming out going, oh, it's fake news. It's not happening. We saw it here with this virus. You know, the very beginning of, you know, it's a hoax. It's a smear.
Media making it.
Yeah, it's just a big hoax. They're exaggerating how bad it was, and by doing it, we right now have people that are constantly bringing up, well, the flu kills more people. You know, hold on, let's see if I can find it. No, I don't know if I can find it. Oh, they don't have it. I can't find it. There's a really funny picture. I'll have to share it with you, where you know, it shows.
Open your Facebook.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. But anyway, it's basically a funny picture. It shows Godzilla being attacked by, or the city being attacked by Godzilla. Yeah, here, let me pull it over to the main screen and show it to you. That I thought was kind of funny. You know, this picture right here says, "Oh, run! Godzilla's attacking the city." It says, "Relax, the flu kills 25,000 each year." You know, it's kind of hilarious. But I mean, that's what we deal with. I still hear people. You know, y'all listened. Hopefully, y'all listened yesterday. You know, the silliness of just saying, "Oh, the flu kills more people." Well, maybe so, but it didn't stop. You know, we're now adding to it. So.
Anywho.
Yeah. Okay, so after releasing so much radiation in the atmosphere, it's close to making Eastern, it's supposed to say...
Eastern.
Not Eastern Europe uninhabitable. I mean, it's this close to making it completely uninhabitable in Eastern Europe. Now, the only solution they have was to have men dig a tunnel to the core and fill it with cement. All of these miners that they sent in were being sent to their deaths. Horrible deaths, knowing they were being sent to their deaths. Right? Like, most of them knew ahead of time, hey, I'm marching in this mine to die. The total cost of this event has been estimated to be around $235 billion in damages. The 1,000 square mile region around Pripyat will likely never be inhabitable in your lifetime. So they'll probably never have people move back into it.
Okay, what makes it
Radiation. Yeah, and let me talk about that.
What does it do?
Okay, so radiation, basically, in a nutshell, what it does is it enters the individual cells of your body, and it changes the cells of your body to now themselves emit radiation. So let's say you go near somewhere and you get radiation in you. It's not something where like your body gets rid of it over time. Your body stays radioactive for the rest of your life. Right? So however much radiation you accumulate, it's like adding to it over and over and over and over and over. Which is why, by the way, if you notice when you go to get your chest x-ray, they don't give you that lead shielding, they just x-ray you. But the technician that's doing it, he goes into another room that's lead shielded, and he wears a lead suit to protect himself. Why? Because it wouldn't affect you to get one chest x-ray, but if he's doing 100 of those a day for 365 days out of the year, he's slowly building up his radiation levels. It's going to cause things like cancer and leukemia and eventually kill him, right? So one of the things that makes it so deadly is when you go in there and you get that radiation on you, particularly like getting this close to Chernobyl. Not only are you killing yourself, but now you're radioactive and you're contaminating everybody else. Like they would bring people in to try to treat them that had died near the plant, and they found that they get the entire
They're
hospital
spreading
sick.
it.
Yeah, they get the whole hospital sick because they themselves are emitting radiation, right? And basically, it breaks you down at the subatomic level. The cellular level. So literally, your cells die. So it's pretty horrific way to die.
I'm guessing it's also affected like plants and animals.
Yes.
So
yes.
you cannot eat.
Right,
there.
you couldn't even eat the food. Now, what I'm about to show you is a clip. Mr. Masley, who commented earlier, he actually is the one that showed me on. There was this show called Top Gear, where they had this stupid competition where they had to drive towards Chernobyl, and whenever they ran out of gas, they got to stop. Otherwise, they had to drive all the way up to Chernobyl, right? And so they kind of had this like competition to get the worst possible fuel efficiency. So that way they'd run out of gas and they wouldn't have to fool with.
Away.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to fool with get close to Chernobyl. So I wanted you to kind of see that. I'm going to skip ahead.
After
to the
25
Chernobyl.
Now,
This is where they're trying to get
believe
variable
this-
gas mileage. One of them
I
finally
don't
gets. He hadn't even
believe
made it to Chernobyl. Okay,
the
here-
barrier marked the start of the 30-kilometre exclusion zone. And
Here's
now
where they make
I'd
it.
have to go through it. So would James. But who would film what happened afterwards?
Three
Yeah,
main
the camera crew
cameramen.
doesn't
Yeah.
want to go in there.
They're getting in a taxi and going back to Kiev.
Bye.
What?
They're not going in. There they go.
So we're filming the most dangerous thing we've ever done with two, I don't want to be rude, but camera assistants.
I actually would thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You're very brave. You're now promoted official cameramen.
I know you want to get on in the world, but this is a bit much.
Those of us who were going in made their preparations.
Yeah, I
Right,
don't know what.
air on recirc, vents shut. Geiger counter.
Geiger counter's a machine that tells you the radiation.
And they let them in?
Yeah, they let him in.
That really is a Geiger counter, and it really is going tick, tick, tick.
God, so they
Cameraman is having to film us from the back of a Land Rover as
Yeah,
usual,
it'll
but
be
with
the
the
rest
door
of it.
closed.
It'll be the rest of Elizabeth.
Normally the tailgate is propped open.
That's like $75,000.
Usually the tailgate is open.
There's something like 17 tons of radioactive
Yeah, but
waste
none of that-
still in the exposed reactor core.
You would.
They're building an enormous
Do this.
sort of arch, really, over the entire site, which will seal it off, but that is not finished yet.
With 8 kilometres to go, I had started to beg.
Run out. Run out now.
Yeah, they want their cars to run
But
out
it
again.
didn't.
Look at that 2,000.
That needle is definitely moving.
Now it had become imperative we didn't run out until we were well past the reactor.
There it is.
You see the reactor core right there?
Oh, it's so eerie.
That is the remains of reactor number 4. This is unbelievable. I wouldn't want to appear to be gloating at a time like this, but I do still have 2 bars of fuel left.
I didn't.
Oh my God. Don't stop now.
And as a result, I was in serious trouble.
You don't want to stop there.
Man, I want you to
This
see
is where the people who worked at the
city.
nuclear facility all lived. Totally abandoned now. Has been for 28 years.
Look at it. Look at that there.
This has to be one of the world's most astonishing spectacles.
Oh my, I've seen this.
Radiation was killing.
This is it. This is the playground.
This was
Whoa, big spike. It is definitely now time to get out of here.
They certainly choose the wrong car.
Come on, little up. Don't run out now. Oh, that was, it coughed. Oh, that was a cough. It's gone. It's gone.
No, they get him out. So what stood out to you regarding the events of Chernobyl?
How the act of trying to cover up cost so many lives.
Yeah, because, I mean, had they initially called it a meltdown, a nuclear
and
meltdown.
properly shut it down.
Right, then what they could have done is they could have turned off the other fuel rods. It would have stopped a whole lot of the radiation. They could have, and if you want me to, I can put in the show notes. They do a really good job explaining in the movie exactly what happened. But there's a lot of measures they could have taken to save tons and tons of lives that they just didn't take because they refused. Nobody wanted to admit it was their fault, right? The people at the reactor plant, they didn't want to admit it was their fault, so they lied about it. And so then they lied about it to their officials, and they didn't want to admit the problem was worse than it was, who lied about it to their leaders, and so on and so forth, all the way up to Gorbachev, and of course he doesn't want to look like the bungling idiot that allowed a nuclear meltdown. So everybody was listening to what they wanted to hear rather than what they needed to hear. That's why one of the problems we have with this virus. You got a lot of people that are going around looking for any and all information they can find to convince themselves it's okay to go outside. It's okay to run around and play with your buddies. I saw somebody on Facebook that's one of my students, and they were practicing social distancing by hitting a volleyball to each other. But the problem is when you hit the volleyball, if you're contaminated, you're putting your germs on the ball, and then somebody else hits the ball and they get the germs, and you might as well be up hugging each other. It's right. Oh, the government's sending those. Yeah, that's a great one. And I'll tell you, if you watch the show, what a powerful scene. Like watching these guys like, hey, we're not going to live, are we? And him having to say, no, you're not. They're like, okay, we just needed to know. Oh, so powerful. Well, and plus too, the guy, the scientist guy.
Legasov.
Yeah, he's going to end up killing himself. He's going to end up committing suicide.
Are you just spoilering stuff? Or
no, in fact, the opening scene shows him kill himself. Oh. The very first scene of the show. And then it goes back to why he killed himself. Right. Okay, so as Gorbachev gave people a taste of freedom, they grew to love it, and they demanded more. Gorbachev gave it to them even more. And they began to allow partitions of the Soviet Union to elect non-communist governments in their legislature. Okay, so we're not talking about the prime minister, but like the Soviet Union is basically little tiny countries that are all together as one country, kind of like we are, right? Yeah. Just like the United States, right? Russia was still a state in the Soviet Union. So it's like the Ukraine was one, Kazakhstan was one, so on and so forth, right? So, some of the smaller ones started electing non-communists, right? Which is like huge, right? It used to be the primary was the only thing you were fighting for. Once you had the nomination, you were just going to walk in. Now they're allowing some of these states to have non-communist leaders, and that's a huge thing, right? Okay, the next event's going to be the fall of the Berlin Wall in '89. People would actually go and take pickaxes and tear the wall down. They already opened the gates, but they allow the wall to be destroyed. And this serves as the kind of unofficial symbol of the fall of communism, right? That we've had this experiment, what works, communism or the democratic republic that we have. Turns out communism doesn't work, right? So why do you think the fall of the Berlin Wall was so important to the world?
Because it's not proving, but it's like a symbol of how communism doesn't work.
Right.
But we still have communism in the world now.
We do. North Korea, it's not doing very well up there. You got Cuba, not doing well. China's probably the best, but the funny thing about
China's
China,
weird though.
Yeah, so they're a communist country that has lots of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of capitalism. They still have the government control everything, but you can go in China and start a business, be a billionaire, make lots of money.
Trades are going really well.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, there's this argument of who has more freedom, us or China. In a lot of ways, like, we have more freedom, right? Our media is not censored, for example. But, over in China, there's a lot of freedoms. Many I don't want. But, China, you can hire a 6-year-old to go work for 8 hours a day. That's not a problem. So there's a lot of freedoms they have that I don't necessarily want, but they have them. But, yeah, it represents the fall of communism. The fall of an oppressive government. I like how he words that.
So once the Berlin Wall fall, Germany becomes one again. So
That's
the
right.
East Germany people now is Germany.
Yes.
Like they go to the
Yes. Right. Like to
Merkel.
this day, yeah, Angela Merkel is the prime minister of all of Germany.
This is what, about 89, you say?
Mhm.
The year?
Mhm.
So that's not far along ago.
No, it was a huge event when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the scope of it when I was 9 years old. I was 9, by the way, when this happened.
I was 2.
Yeah, so I didn't understand the scope of it. But even I at 9 was like, man, what this? Yeah, everybody's making a big deal about this.
What is happening? But that's great. That means the family doesn't being separated.
That's right. That's right. So, as more demands for freedom spread, Gorbachev wanted to draw a line at keeping the nation together. Right? He didn't want the nation to fall apart. So he began to give more authority to the individual states themselves. Their version of the states are the republics, in hopes that they would stay under central control. Right? So more power to the individual republics. And here's the list of them. Of course, the largest one right here is Russia. But you got Belarus, you got Armenia, Turkestan, Kazakhstan. You can see all the different ones. Ukraine, Estonia, Latvia, Uzbekistan. Every time I think of Uzbekistan, I think of Herman Cain calling it Uzbekistan. Wait, what?
9,000.
What? It went up 3,000 cases?
A day?
Wow, we went up 3,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so the more conservative portion of the government decided, wait a minute, this is not good, right? The Communist Party cannot fall, blah, 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 right? So they decide to take the liberal Gorbachev and place him under house arrest. The leader of the Russian Republic is a guy named Boris Yeltsin, and he's going to take over. So he's going to be the new de facto leader, right? He was a governor, now he becomes kind of the president. So why would the government remove such a beloved leader? This guy won a Nobel Prize. Why would they remove him? Do you think? My dog is snoring. But why would they remove this beloved leader and put him on house arrest?
Because it's too much freedom?
That's right. The government doesn't want this. They're afraid that the Soviet Union's collapsing. They don't want the states having power. They don't want Western values. They don't want democracy. They want to maintain power. People that have power fear nothing more than losing it.
Yeah, I guess for the bosses, for the people in the government,
Right.
They like living like that.
Right.
The one that experiences it the most is the one in the bottom.
Right. That's right.
What did he win Nobel Prize for?
Basically for his talks with America and ending the Cold War.
So basically, the thing that makes him get the Nobel Prize is the thing that get him in house arrest.
That's right. That's right. One and the same.
Boris Yeltsin. That name is familiar.
He was the leader of Russia when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think I heard him in like World News or something.
Mm-hmm. Of course, now it's run by an ex-KGB dude.
They go topless and ride on horses.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to stop saying that thing.
What?
I don't want to get murdered.
Okay. So as Yeltsin took over, the Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia would declare independence. The Soviet Union is dissolved, and Gorbachev was a president without a country. So he's the president of the Soviet Union, but there's no more Soviet Union. Now, needless to say, this is a pleasant shock to the U.S. Man, I remember when I'm a little kid here, and the Soviet Union collapsed. There's a really good video that talks about it was talking about social constructs, right? Let's see. It was talking about basically the idea behind a social construct. Oops. It got your answer. But anyway, it's talking about social constructs, and the thing about a social construct, it kind of talks about. I talk about this all the time with my students. Is that if oh, sorry, let me go back. But one of the reasons we have America is because we all agree that America exists. If everybody tomorrow woke up and just agreed, hey, America's over, it's done, it's gone, right? We don't recognize authority, we don't recognize the president, none of that stuff. Congress doesn't matter. Well, then guess what? We don't have a country, right? We're only, same thing with our money. We talked about going off the gold standard. The only reason we think our money has value is just we all agree it does. And this was kind of one of those weird events where everybody just woke up the next day and said, "Yeah,
we're done.
We're done with the Soviet Union. It's over. It's done."
So I will ask, the No Country for Old Men, the movie, is this about this?
No, I'm very clever with my titles for names.
Because I never watched that movie. I kind of want
to
watch
it.
No,
it's not about this. No,
right.
I just like using clever pop culture references. Okay, so massive military spending. It's like, by the way, today's lesson is the curtain falls. It's a reference to the Iron Curtain, and then the curtain falling on a television or a theater production. When they'd have a play, the curtain would fall would be the end of the theater production. Iron Curtain falls. I thought it was clever. Anyways, massive military spending. Why did the Soviet Union collapse? Right? It's not one thing, right? It's like a bunch of things all working together, right? The first one being massive military spending, right? Just going way all out there in military spending. Economic inequality, right? The rich having a whole lot and the poor having very little. Oppression at the hands of ultra-conservative dictators. The Chernobyl disaster, right? Where the government just ignored the facts and let something be terrible, right? And then the other failures of communism, right? The fact that it cannot address things like what happens if you have a corrupt guy like Joseph Stalin. There's no way to, if, in theory, if we have a really bad president, we can impeach him. Or Congress or the judicial branch can step in and limit his power.
Other people can step
in.
Right.
There's no way to do that in a communist dictatorship. If you got a bad leader, you just got to wait until he dies. So having heard the story of the Soviet Union, why do you think it fell? Now, obviously, it's a little bit of everything. But what do you think was the biggest cause, right? Like, what do you think was the main driving force that caused it to fall?
I think people just had enough.
Yeah.
You can say that, I'm going to be loyal to my office, let's say. I'm going to work there, it's all good, blah, blah, blah. But what happened until they're like, yeah, we're not going to pay you anymore, but you still have to work here or you're going to jail.
Right.
And then people start like, no, I don't want to do that. Therefore, in this country, it was the poor is very poor, and then they see these rich people having a lot of power.
Right. Yeah, it's I tell you, after watching that Chernobyl show, it was really hard not for me to think that was the biggest factor. Just because
yeah, but it's not
they don't have the economy we do. We have I think a $75 trillion economy. They don't have it like that. And it was the combination of destroying faith in the government mixed with the sheer volume of lives sent to die, mixed with
economy.
The economic impact. It was a nightmare. That, or I tell you, I think a big part of it was giving them the taste of freedom. It's once you give them the taste of it, You know, it's funny
It's like, this is better.
Right. Well, it's funny too. Like if you look back when I was in high school, you know, I didn't bring a phone to school, and I didn't know what I was missing. You know, but try taking the phones away from some of these students. It's like taking away their oxygen.
You say student, but even like you know, I remember not too long ago, maybe 5-7 years ago, if I left my phone at home, so be it. I left my phone at home. It's fine, you know. Now if I left my phone at home, I'm like, all right, I'm heading back because I left my phone. I'm going to be late.
Right. You know? Yeah, you can't just go without the phone for the day.
Yeah, I used to be fine without it.
Yeah. Yep.
I think the reason why I say economy inequality, stealing her answer, is also because that's what in Indonesia what I experienced. The whole reformation happened because of it.
And it's such a primal thing too. You know, we joke about it too, but it's like, you know, I'll pet one of the dogs, and all of a sudden the other dog's like, "Why do I get pets?" You know, I mean, it's a very basic primal thing, right? For an animal to feel like they judge how the world reacts to them based on how it reacts to others like them. You know, I can't tell you, and every kid I've ever met's like this. You know, they're so concerned with fair. Little kids are always concerned.
How many times the kids say, "Well, no, that's not fair."
Right? Yeah. You know, my kids, I can't tell you how many times I've heard them say, "That's not fair." You have to go to Nearpod if you want to participate.
I'm trying.
But yeah, it's a huge event.
So I just go as student? Okay.
Yeah,
what's the code?
TOSUL. Yeah. Alright, y'all gonna compete with Miss Waldrop, see how she can do.
Hey, Miss Patel, we have the same character. Not that it's important.
Alright, are you in? Alright, let's get going. Well, she learned all this just today, just like y'all did. Alright, we'll go ahead and get going. Okay, and just once again, I want to always take this time to thank all of y'all for showing up, investing in your education. What?
See?
No fair. Thank you so much for investing in your education. I always appreciate y'all showing up. I will continue to do this for the duration. Thank y'all so much. I also want to thank everybody that showed up yesterday to participate in the interview. That meant a lot to me. Y'all shared up, helped get that good information out. Post it on your Instagram, post it on whatever you want to post it on. Help spread that good information out. Help people stay safe. I really appreciate it. And y'all, unless you have any questions about this or any other topic, school, the virus, anything like that, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to put them in the chat and I will respond to it. They did say we could use Microsoft Teams. So, if y'all want to try working on that, maybe we could work that out.
Yes. What?
Okay. Noelle puts in a whole lot of yeses.
What's up?
Thank you for all the yeses.
No, maybe there's a question or something.
All right, well, listen, y'all, thank you so much. I appreciate y'all showing up today, investing in your education. I think if you have science with Miss Cobb, her lessons start at 1 o'clock, so I don't want to keep y'all to it. So thank y'all again. I appreciate it, and y'all have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.